Welcome to At the Ready podcast, where we gear up men to navigate life's battles with purpose. Join us as we arm ourselves with wisdom, faith, and a community of men prepared to walk this life together. Now let's get ready. In this episode of At the Ready, I sat down with my good friend Jake Proctor. Jake is a veteran of the United States Army, much like myself, so we had a lot in common and some good conversation. But Jake, in his military career, he dealt with some mental health. He saw some things that caused him to fall and struggle. And as a result, Uncle Sam dropped him like a bag of rocks. And that led him down a path of struggle throughout his life, battling with, am I good enough? Should I just end this? But we'll let Jake tell that story. Part 2, he talks about how he ended up in the place he is now, Mayfield, Kentucky, how he come to find the Lord, how he met me, and how his life has changed, and how now he tries to spread a message of brotherhood and how we should never fight alone. So pull up a chair, put in an earbud, listen up as I talk to my good friend Jake. Now let's get ready. All right, welcome, Jake. Welcome to At the Ready.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about the podcast and the setup we got here?
I love it. I think this is going to be a great thing, man, and your obedience to God to start something like this, I think there's definitely a crucial need for that, for young men and men in general to maybe have a source to not only find faith, but to see the average typical dudes that are just going through the struggle, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of what I had in mind when I started this whole thing. And, you know, a lot of the audience has already heard this story when I talked to Lee, but you know, there just wasn't much out there for guys like us.
No.
You know, there's, and what guys like us, I mean, just regular guys who just trudge through life. You know, a lot of people who had podcasts, like, do it for a living, or they live far off from Western Kentucky. And so, man, I wanted something that I could relate to.
Right.
Something that I like. Man, I like those old boys. I want to go back and listen to them. That's one of the reasons, like, the Duck Dynasty guys are so popular. Because they're just good old boys who hunt ducks, and then once or twice a week they get on and talk about stuff, you know. So
yeah, for sure.
I just wanted to hear your story. I know we talked. We had breakfast this morning. We talked about, kind of got a plan of some things we want to talk about, but I just want to start with your story. If you want, you know, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from, where you are now, that whole thing. Just kind of give your testimony, tell your story a little bit.
Right on. Well, I'm Jake Proctor. I was born in Charlotte, Michigan, in 1995.
Wait, so you're technically a Yankee?
I guess. I'm a transplant. I don't claim
Okay,
that.
all right.
But yeah, I was born in Charlotte, Michigan. My biological father left my mom before I was even born. When I was like 5 or 6, somewhere in that area. Mm-hmm. My dad, that I called dad, adopted me. I got a little brother and an older brother, and we lived a pretty normal childhood. I lived in Michigan until I was probably 8 or 9. I'd say I kind of come from like a lower middle class family. At that time, we were living in Lansing, Michigan, in the ghetto,
Gotcha.
and like a primarily Hispanic and black area. So we were like the outcasts, you know, and we were mingling.
You were the minority.
I was the minority,
gotcha.
And that was kind of crucial because, like, when we finally made the move south to where like my family and stuff was, like, I was more comfortable around people that were different than me.
Yeah.
You know, and then you get down here to the Western Kentucky, to that Graves County High School and stuff, and like it's a primarily Caucasian school at the time, you know, and so that was kind of wild for me. But to kind of not jump ahead there, we grew up, like I said, kind of like in the projects. It wasn't necessarily easy, but to us it was great. Playing football in the backyard with all the kids and kind of just hanging out. My dad was in the Navy. He ended up retiring in like 2020, I believe it was, and he was in and out of my life, not like choosing to be, but he was deploying because of the early 2000s. The war kicked off, and so I wasn't fatherless, but I was fatherless in a sense because my dad, I think he did like 4 or 5 tours. He was gone all the time, and it's kind of strange, Me and my brothers were kind of fending for ourselves. My mom was struggling to make ends meet, and there for a hot minute, we were living off like Little Caesar's pizza and a prayer. I was raised in a strong Christian home, but I never really paid much attention to it. I just was kind of doing my own thing, and when I turned like 12, we ended up moving to Missouri and living with my grandparents for a year so my parents could find a house over here in Kentucky to purchase, and we lived with my grandparents, and that was pretty influential in my life because my grandpa, he hung the stars and the moon for me. He was my primarily man role model, and my grandpa was a man of Christ, but he was a very stern man. He was the one that's quick to tell you, "Hey, dude, Opie, you're screwing up. You better get together. I'm gonna hem you up." But with him being like that, though, he was so encouraging, and that was something that I longed for as a kid because I didn't get those words of affirmation that much. I don't remember my dad straight up telling me he loved me until I was an adult, and when he told me, I was ready to cry. I was like, "What in the world?" So we lived with them for about a year, and we ended up moving to Mayfield, Kentucky, and that's kind of where my social life kind of took off, And originally I was going to Mayfield Independent Schools here, and I started there middle school and jumped right in, and I started playing football and baseball, and I was never very good at football, but baseball was my bread and butter, and I played all the way up through high school, and I was going to Mayfield schools until junior year, and I had a reality kick in that I wasn't good enough to go to the majors. So
Isn't that funny how we all get that gut check in life? Maybe I'm not going to play pro ball.
Absolutely. And the thing about it though is you get fed these false realities. You know what I mean? Like you work so hard as a teenager and a kid, with this one goal in mind, I'm going to go play pro ball, or I'm going to go play D1 or whatever it is. And that just wasn't in the cards for me, and I had opportunity to go play college ball, and then I got my heart killed by a 10-pound hammer because when my mom took me to go meet with a coach and everything, kind of a training day or showcase day or whatever, he just straight up told me, he said, "Jake, we'd love for you to come, but you're going to have to find your own way because you're not academically eligible for our standards." And I'm like, "Well, man, I should have tried more in school, and from that point, I knew that my dad told me, "Dude, as soon as you graduate, you're going to have to do something. You're not going to sit here and hang out in Mayfield Walmart parking lot and do whatever you want." And so I was like, "Well, okay, time to go to the drawing board." I was like, "Well, I've always kind of liked this military thing." So I originally was going to go in the Marine Corps, and I got all the way to the MEPS process. And they do your medical screening there, your physical and whatnot. And found out I was flat-footed, and they're like, "Nah, dude, right now we can't take you." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I'm devastated at this point in my life. I'm like, "Okay, what am I gonna do now?" You know. So I just walked across the hall to the Army part, and I was like, "Here's my packet. Can I be in the Army now?" And they're like, that's not how this works, man. You're gonna have to go talk to a recruiter."
Right.
And they ended up putting me in touch with a guy named Josh Garman, who's a staff sergeant out of PA. Awesome recruiter. And honestly, I probably took him for granted, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll get to that in a minute. But I got in touch with him, and we met and everything. And while this is going on, my dad's deployed right now. He's in Kandahar
Gotcha.
when this is going on. And this
Mhm.
is like in between my junior and senior year. And so I'm meet with Josh Garman, and he gets me lined out and everything. And he shows me all the wonderful options. And we talk bonuses and everything like that. And
Make all the promises.
yeah, makes all the promises. But I will give him credit, though. Like, I've heard horror stories. He was pretty straight up with me.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, this is your ASVAB score. Like, you're not going to be an Army brain surgeon, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, he kind of laid it out for me. And I ended up going and enlisting on an 11 X-ray option 40 contract. And I come back, and, like, I'm proud and everything. And, like, 3 weeks before I'm supposed to ship, I get a DUI.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's the stupidest DUI in the world too,
Yeah.
because I was like less than a mile from my house.
Ouch.
Yeah, I had been out drinking at a local party spot, and been drinking all night long, man, and took off across town, got across the bypass, everything almost back clear, and one of the kids that was my little brother's friend, at like 3 a.m, decided to hang out the window and flip off a cop while we were going down the road.
Jeez.
And he lit me up, and he stopped me literally less than a mile from my house. And I knew it was game over from that point. I was like, man, I'm going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're how old at this time?
18. I just turned 18.
Oh.
And like literally. And that was kind of scary, you know. I went to jail. My little brother went to jail. He had his own things. I'm not going to really get into that.
Mhm.
But and then that kid that we were giving a ride home that night tried to lie and say he belonged to my mom. It was a whole ordeal. My mom showed me that tough love, man, and left me in jail until like Sunday morning. This happened like a Friday night.
Oh.
And so she left me in jail. And finally my little brother's like, are we going to go get Jake? Like, is that going to happen? And they came and got me, and my mom was red hot. She had every right to be. My dad's deployed, and here I'm out doing stupid stuff. Right. And at the time, she was like she was something head up. I can't remember her actual position, but over there at Mid-Continent, which is a Christian college.
Yep. Christian Bible college.
Here, her boys are out here acting a fool.
Right.
You know, and that's what happened. And I got home, and she showed me that tough love, and she didn't yell at me or nothing. But she said, Jake, you need to get on that horn and call Sergeant Garman.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, we'll talk about a dreadful thing. I called him, and I remember he answered the phone, and I was like, Sergeant Garman, I screwed up. And he's like, well, what did you do? And I told him, and he was mad. You know, he used colorful words and everything with me. He's like, dude, you just screwed up. Mm-hmm. He said the number one thing to get people kicked out of the military is alcohol-related incidents.
Right. He
said, you're not even in the military, and you have an alcohol-related incident. He said, what are we supposed to do now? And I'm like, I don't know. So he kind of like ghosted me after that for a minute. And I'm still supposed to ship in like 3 weeks. And so I'm like going through this, and we go to my arraignment, and we had an attorney, and by the grace of God, the attorney here talked to the judge during that, and he was like, Your Honor, you know, this young man made a mistake. He knows that he made a mistake, but he's already enlisted in the Army, and he's supposed to ship literally the day after high school, and if we charge him as he's earned it, he'll screw up his whole life, and this might become a pattern. Mm-hmm. And that judge showed me grace.
Wow. And
put me on a year probation, which was great because I was gone for over a year. You know, I wasn't driving or nothing.
You didn't matter, yeah.
You know, so blessed, man.
Yeah.
Blessed, because that would have harmed me more than I would have ever imagined being that young, you know. And so I graduate barely by the skin of my teeth. You know, it was like those videos you see on YouTube of the train about to hit the guy, and the guy like jumps out of the way at the last second. That was me graduating high school.
Made it.
Yeah, man. And this whole time, my friend group are just toxic folks, if I'm being honest, man. Yeah. We're drinking, smoking weed, chasing women.
Did you run with like the outlaw crowd?
Man, I wouldn't say necessarily outlaw crowd, but like definitely like the party animals. Yeah. And
I can relate to that. When I was that age, high school, we always say hindsight's 2020,
Yeah.
and I always say too, you can really see God moving in your life when you look back. In the moment, you're like, boy, I got lucky there. Or, boy, I'm glad this happened. Then when you look back, you're like, oh, dang, I see where God there. Because I ran with that same crowd. And it seemed like every time they did something real bad, like, stealing four-wheelers or whatever, for whatever reason, I just wasn't with them that night, or the couple of times that they got caught, for whatever reason, I just wasn't with them. And now looking back, I'm like, okay, God, I see where you were
shining,
had your hand on me there, but
yeah, no, I totally relate to that, man. And dude, I was alcoholic in progress in high school. It was ridiculous. Like, I've been hit by a freaking Duramax truck, got my arm dislocated, and we had to reset it right over here in the wash bay over there at the car wash. Like I was doing stupid stuff, man. And this whole time I'm dating this girl, and we ended up later on getting married, but we'll get there. But yeah, man, I was with a really good core group of friends, and I'll get that straight. I still love them dudes, but like I love them from afar,
They still live around here?
Yeah, okay. And there's a lot of them still doing the same stupid stuff, man. Chasing girls, hanging out at Walmart, and that's one thing, like, later on, like, when I come back here, that made me, like, despise this place, because, like, it's like a cesspool for the same toxic nonsense, and there's some people that are my age that will probably never leave this area.
Yeah.
And the world is a beautiful place if you let it be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so much more beyond Graves County, Kentucky.
Yeah. Anytime I see people complaining either about their hometown or about our country, or I'm like, you have clearly never been outside of your state, let alone outside of the United States, because there are beautiful places all over the world, and B, there are some really crappy places all over the world, So I'm like, go visit one third world country. And then you'll be like, you know what? Mayfield, Kentucky is awesome.
Oh, yeah, it ain't so bad now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. So, anyway, I graduated high school. I ship out the next day. Well, I go to MEPS the next day, then I ship the following day. So 2 days after high school, I was in the van headed to go to basic training. And I was ready. I was ready. And like I said, I had this serious girlfriend, and we done talked about, like, you go do this, we're going to get married, and, the whole American dream. Mm-hmm. He's going to go be in the military, we're going to get married and live happily after.
Right.
Well, that didn't happen.
Didn't work out.
That didn't work out. That narrative did not fit my story.
Yeah.
I get to basic. It was, I don't want to say easy, but it wasn't what I expected.
Where'd you go to basic at?
I went to Benning.
Okay.
And I went there, and
so the Army didn't care about your flat feet?
No, man. The Army looks at you and they say, "Man, you got flat feet. You want to go be like an airborne ranger or something."
I know, and I joke because I have extremely flat feet. I mean, no arch whatsoever. And when I went through MEPS, the doctor, you hold your feet up and look, and the doctor looked and he goes, you got flat feet? I'm like, yeah, I've had them my whole life. He said, you wear insoles or anything? I said, no. He's like, all right, check, good to go. They didn't care.
Yeah, so basic was pretty self-explanatory. I learned pretty soon on, right there in red face. Do what they say, wear what they want you to wear, keep your mouth shut. Yes, drill sergeant, no drill sergeant, and just don't talk if they don't ask you to talk. You know, and
low profile.
Exactly, man, and. It was typical basic. Some funny things happen. It seemed to drag by. We didn't have cell phones. They locked that joker up.
Yeah.
And but it was good for me. It made me grow up. And fast forward, I get done with my training and everything, and find out. Well, actually, I do got a funny story about that. order day came, like for all these dudes that done through OSET, they're getting their order packets to see
orders,
like where they were going to go.
Yeah.
And my orders came out to go to Fort Rucker, Alabama. And I'm like, what in the world am I doing there? And me being me, I didn't know nothing about the Army.
Did you get to, like, they gave us like a top 3. You can write down your top 3 choices. Okay. Well, that wasn't one of your top 3?
No. So, like, yeah, we got like a dream list, like where you could set that up. But they gave me this order packet to send me to Fort Rucker, Alabama. And so I remember after like graduation and everything, my dad was home now, and my mom and my girlfriend at the time came and met me. And they drove me to Fort Rucker, Alabama. Well, I get to Fort Rucker, Alabama, and it turns out those orders weren't even my orders. And I had to check into the walk barracks, the Warrant Officer Cadet Barracks. So now I'm in the walk barracks as like a brand new guy. And I will never forget, man, that my first day there, like when I went and had my big old packet and my duffel bag and all that. And they're like, dude, what are you doing here? And I ended up staying there for like 4 months.
They couldn't figure out what to do with you?
No, like they were shocked, like, how in the world does this happen? And come to find out, like on the outside looking in, you think the Army's this giant machine, but realistically, the Army's pretty small. Once you get inside and been in there for a minute, it's pretty small. And come to find out that me and another guy's orders had gotten screwed up, and his name was Jake Proctor.
Oh.
And he was coming from, I think it was like Fort Riley or something, to go to walk to be a pilot.
Gotcha.
And somehow I ended up going there, and I don't know what part he did, but that was the explanation I got.
Yeah.
So
probably as simple as when somebody was printing out orders, they just clicked on the wrong name.
Oh yeah.
And just printed out his orders and gave them to you. But
well, and like all that comes from like the Rock, So like all your orders and stuff, like they come from one central area for the most part when it comes to like duty stations and stuff like that. And yeah, human error, man.
Yeah.
I ended up there at Fort Rucker, Alabama, and it was so funny because like I have a whole different level of respect for them guys that are trying to go learn how to fly those aircraft, the rotary ring aircraft, because like they work so hard, and then like meanwhile I'm over here in the barracks hanging out with them, rubbing elbows with them, and like my whole job is to wake up, lift the flag up, sweep the sand off the sidewalk, and then just hang out.
Yeah.
And meanwhile the commanding officer over there, he was like the captain, he was like, I'm gonna try to figure out what to do with you, but right now just clean up. Yeah. Like you just make sure everything's clean and don't bother these dudes.
Look busy, stay out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So they got that lined out. I ended up going to Fort Campbell, and that was like my home base for a while, and that was on my dream list. That was one of them, and that was cool. I got to be a part of the 101st and meet some great people, do some high-speed training, and just do things that I thought were abnormal, and that's like where I met at the time. That was like one of my best friends, Adam Wilson. I met him, and me and him had met each other. We were complete strangers, and he was going through like a mental health crisis, and that's how we became friends. Just because like here, this stranger I'm sharing a barracks room with is like talking crazy, like he's about to kill himself and stuff, and that became real. We were like trauma friends after that. I knew his family, they knew me, and it became really real. And I kind of skipped through some of the stuff because you and me could sit here as veterans and talk about the military stuff for a whole episode.
Yeah.
And my life is a lot more than just that.
Right.
And there's a couple key things that I need to bring up though. And roughly like 2016, I got put on a detail, which those who don't know, a detail is pretty much like a task, like a job or whatever. And it was called the Clear Team, and pretty much what we were doing was holding down scenes of Army folks that have committed suicide until CID or the proper authorities had gotten there. And I remember sitting there at that motor pool going through that training, and they're like, well, you guys have been selected because y'all are just crazy enough to do it. Wow. And I was like, well, that's how.
How do you take that? Is that a good thing, a bad thing?
And it's an honorable thing to do,
Right.
but it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
And so within this span of time, man, like we done had a dude, and if you're familiar with Fort Campbell, 3rd Brigade, they're all the Rockasans, and they have these big old red Tories everywhere. Like my first week on this, a dude hung himself off the big Tory.
Wow.
He had somehow climbed up there and hung himself off of it.
Yeah.
And nobody noticed this man until PT. So a lovely 101st, we're going for a run every day, and somebody spotted him, and like that was my first like true experience with suicide.
Yeah. 101st, for those that don't know, like Fort Campbell, it's one of the biggest military bases in the country. I mean, you've got some big ones, but, Fort Campbell's one of the well-knowns. And, air assault schools there.
Yeah, air assault, Pathfinder, 5th group.
Yeah, there's a lot of big things right there. And it's called Fort Campbell, Kentucky, but it's really in Clarksville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Most of the base. I think the post office is in Kentucky, which is why Kentucky gets the credit for it. But
Yep, and you're absolutely right, man. That post is a really big installation. It's nice, it's like its own self-sustained town. It's home of a lot of prestigious things, and the one thing that they kind of like toot their horn to is that it's primarily a combat arms post.
yeah.
You got a lot of infantry brigades there. You got 5th Group Special Forces, 160th SOAR, the Night Stalker dudes, and needless to say, there's a lot of dudes there that are going through some stuff.
Right.
And during this timeline, one thing that you need to remember, like we're still actively in war.
Mm-hmm.
We're actively in war. People are literally dying in the neighborhood I'm living in, and like it's a sad reality, and then if they're not being exposed to things downrange, they come home and whatever it is, financial stress, marital stress, whatever, post-traumatic stress, they're being failed, at the end of the day. And the last scene that I ever had to go to was one of our guys in our unit. Now, I didn't know this man. He was a little bit more senior than me, and he had just got back from a deployment. And we weren't in the same platoon or anything, but we had got a call like, hey, we heard a firearm discharged in the barracks. And for those that don't know, like as an enlisted soldier living in the barracks, you can have firearms, but they have to be checked into the arms room.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be secured.
Yeah, you're not having them in your bunk with you.
Right. No, sir. And so we got called that a firearm had been discharged in the barracks. And so we go there. We talk to the staff duty guy, which is like pretty much a detail of like a security guy down there at the desk, keeps a log of everything going on. And we go up there, we make entry to the room, and this man had took his own life with a tactical shotgun that he had got into the barracks. And
wow.
That haunts me still to this day, and I remember we're standing there just wishing the MPs and CID would be there because I didn't want to be there. I did not want to be in that situation. And they get there and everything, and they make contact with his parents, and his dad's pretty much like, well, if he's that big of a coward, y'all keep him.
Wow.
So, like, he ended up getting buried there locally, and the only people that showed up was the unit.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know this man, but we just went through this big event together,
Mm-hmm.
and even though he's passed on, like, me and him are together now.
Right.
And that event right there screwed me up, Brad. Just to be real with you.
Let's talk about how crazy it is that a military base has to have a unit set aside that just secures scenes of soldiers who committed suicide. Like, I don't think people understand truly. Like, I was deployed to Afghanistan for a year, a little over. And I don't think people understand how difficult war is on the mind, even after you get home. Like, I would almost wonder if that man's father had he ever been done anything hard.
Yeah.
You know, just to think, well, if he's that much of a coward, y'all keep him.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's probably seen some things or dealt with some things. And then when you get home, you know, a lot of times active duty military, they'll deploy from anywhere from like 6 months to a year at a time, like National Guard, your Army Reserves, to spin a unit up for the Army to get their money's worth, so to say. You know, you have to stay in country for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you're there for 6 months to a year. You might get 2 weeks of leave to come home, maybe. But during that time, your world back home continues to
keep on moving.
Mm-hmm. And then so you're fighting war the whole time. You're trying to keep yourself together so you're not getting blown up or shot at. You're staying, you know, vigilant and observant. But then in the back of your mind, you're worried about your wife, your kids, your girlfriend. You know, I couldn't tell you how many Dear John letters I seen, or calls, or emergency leaves going home because their wife's about to leave them when I was, you know, in country. And then you throw on top of that the things that people see, and it's understandable to a point why people can't handle. And then instead of, you know, this is a shot on the military, all branches, because they all suck at it. Instead of offering help for people when they get back, they come up with a unit to secure areas of those who committed suicide until the MPs or CID can get there. It just blows my mind that.
Absolutely. And like the thing is, like, we weren't even like a unit, man. We were literally just like a group of dudes that got tasked with a detail, and man, and the Army's notorious for them. But I'm right there with you, dude. They will pump thousands upon hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, into some folks to make them the most lethal, effective machine they can do. And then they leave or whatever, and there's no follow through.
Well, as soon as the machine, the military machine, as soon as they realize you're non-combat effective, either physically or mentally, they drop you like a hot potato.
Oh, absolutely. And that's actually how my career ended, is that I ended up getting in an injury incident, and they were like, well, you're non-combat effective now at this point, you know? And under the Obama administration at that time, that was a real thing. So, like, they gave me an option, like, hey, dude, you're either going to reclass or you're going to get on out of here. And I was like, well, I'm already invested in this career path. So, like, I'm not going nowhere. Yeah. And they came down on me on, like, a Tuesday, and they were like, well, Proctor, you got to be out of the Army by Friday. And I'm like, okay, you know? And they had no plan, really.
Yeah, and that's another thing, too. Like, they're not giving you a pathway out. They're just like, yeah, you're not useful for us anymore. You're out of here.
And some of that, I'm gonna take some of that on the chin. You know, like, you can be stubborn to a point. I should have been more proactive because I knew that was a potential. I should have been going through my ACAT process. I should have been learning how to resume build. I should have learned how to, like, apply for colleges or sought after different things. But meanwhile, I'm just hanging out, man.
Yeah. Well, okay, so how old are you at this point?
When I'm getting ready to ETS, I was 22, I believe.
You're still a kid.
I'm still a kid.
I know that's what also blows my mind too, is, you know, we give the people label of adults at 18, but they've already proven scientifically that our brains are not even fully developed until we're 25. Oh, yeah. So you're still a kid.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kids fighting war.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, when they're done with you, they're like,
you're washed up.
You're done. Have a good life, you know, and you're still a kid trying to be like, oh, shoot, I should have. That's no different than my 15-year-old, you know, like, I said the other day, I'm like, why you got a C here? Well, I got some assignments I haven't turned in yet. I'm like, why not? I don't know. I just haven't. You know, it's just stupid kid stuff. Yeah, man. I'm like, yeah. And then they expect you to make grown-up decisions when you're still a kid.
Yeah. Me and that woman ended up getting married and then divorced.
Wow.
But
so you eat real quick. You ETS, you go back home. You move back home.
No, I didn't. So before I ETS, I'm already divorced. About a year out, I get divorced.
Oh wait, you got married while you were in?
Yeah, I got married in that transition. I should have said that. That's my fault. But right. When I transitioned from like when I'm on block leave to go to my unit and everything.
Yeah.
Me and her done ran off, got married, and that was a constant struggle, man. Like, looking back, hindsight 2020, I failed her, you know. I wasn't present, you know. I cared more about the dudes I was with, and what people don't realize is, like, even though you might not be deployed or whatever, you're still not home.
Yeah.
You're not home. And even when you are, like, physically home, your mind's not home. You're sitting there going through battle drills. You're going through procedures. You're thinking about other dudes. You're thinking about the task on hand, you know, and it's so go, 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 go that, like, I ain't got time to sit down and take you on a date. I ain't got time to be like, hey, you look nice today. So, anyway, long story short, we grew apart. She divorced me when I wasn't home. Well, she served me with divorce papers when I wasn't home. I came home, and my house was going in foreclosure. My yard was overgrown. It looked like Vietnam.
Wow.
And that was that, really. You know, that was kind of a rough, weird point, but that made me a savage at that point. Like, at that point, I didn't care. You know, I didn't care about getting emotionally invested in a person anymore. I had accepted my fate that I was going to die, you know, like, whatever, you know, and you know, and that happened. And then jump ahead, you know, when I'm about to ETS, I meet Heather, which is my current wife, and I had just graduated an Army school, and me and my buddies went out drinking on the town, and she was in Clarksville opening up an Applebee's or working at Applebee's or whatever. She's like a general manager or something, or corporate Applebee's. And needless to say, I got to a restaurant. I was under the influence, and I seen her across the restaurant. And I was feeling good, you know, liquid courage. I was like, hey, girl, come over here, talk to a real man.
Yeah.
And she came over to kick me out, was what she did. And
good first impression, Jake.
Oh, yeah. I was stunning.
Yeah.
So it was me and, like, a whole table of Army dudes, and she came to kick me out. And before she kicked me out, she just got talking to me, and she sat there for like an hour and a half talking to me that night. And enough where I'd actually sobered up a little bit. And I was like, well, can I get your number? And she said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I was like, can I get your Snapchat? And she said, no, cowboy. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, in that case, I'm going to give you my number. And if you want to go on a date, you can hit me up.
Yeah.
And I always said that she tried to play hard to get at first. But when I got home that night, she gave me a call to make sure I made it home.
Gotcha. That was nice of her.
Yeah, it was nice of her. So me and her start dating. At this point, I'm still not legally divorced in the courts. She was tracking the situation, and my ex-wife found out that I was dating somebody and hit me on spousal support through the military, and I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So, but pretty much what that is like military alimony.
Yeah.
And she had got a hold of my unit and everything, and they called me and they're like, dude, you got to the end of the day to come up with X amount or you're going to go to jail. And I'm like, I didn't even know I'm supposed to be doing this. And Heather actually had loaned me the money to keep me out of jail.
Holy cow.
And so, like, at that point, I knew she was different, you know. And we're going, and I ended up having like a kind of a mental breakdown, man. And I got sent to Cumberland Hall there in Hawkinsville, Kentucky, do some decompression time and some intensive therapy. And this whole time that I'm there, I'm not really being the nicest person in the world to Heather.
Yeah.
You know, and I felt like I was in like a minimum grade prison, and at the time, I hated it, but I needed it. But when I got out of that situation and got put back in the civilian world, I just kind of went off the hinges, man, you know? And, like, I was there for, like, 30 some odd days or something like that.
So what would you say caused that? Just a culmination? Are you in this unit seeing suicide, or is this before that?
No, yeah, I was in it. My detail time had done passed, so that's behind me. It was just combination of things, man. Like literally, like, I felt like my world was falling in around me. The only thing I had going for me was the Army. The Army's giving up on me,
Right.
and so like I have at a mental break. And honestly, I didn't intend to go to that thing. I went to a mental health clinic there on post,
Mm-hmm.
and was like, look, I need to talk. I need to talk and get this figured out. First thing they do is slap me with a profile.
Wow. Yeah.
And
They're notorious for that. Yeah.
and for those that don't know, a profile is like a limitations thing. Like if you go to the doctor, you get like work limitations or whatever. That's exactly what a profile is, just in a military bearing. So like, they slapped me on a profile, and then my unit's like, well, what are we gonna do with you, kid? And that's like really like the downfall of it all. My leadership at that point really sucked. Like they weren't motivated. The morale was at an all-time low. We had a bunch of new guys coming in, and the old guys were getting out.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just what was going on at that point. And I went back to the mental health clinic, and they're like, "Yeah, dude, we're gonna send you to inpatient." And I was like, okay, like, what's this? And next thing I know, I'm on a van going to Cumberland, and they treated me well, but like they treated me like the Joker off Batman or something.
Yeah. Like you were crazy.
Yeah, like I was crazy, and
You just really wanted just like some therapy. I just
yeah.
want to talk to somebody about,
yeah,
here's what I got going on. I need a plan for the future.
yeah, and
Wow.
but what I didn't realize though until I got there, like Cumberland Hall is a phenomenal facility, and I don't mean to sound negative about them at all, because the way that they do their veterans, and they have a veteran wing, and they have a staff that's dedicated just for veterans, that's A+ in my book.
Yeah.
And they treat you with dignity and respect. And unless you give them a reason to like actually have to like restrain you, or to like really kind of limit what you're allowed to do, like they treat you like you're grown,
Like you're a person.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a really kind of a crucial point in my life. That's when I really realized that suicide ideation was like really present in my life, and I didn't realize it. Like I'd always been like that guy, like, well, screw it, man, if I die, I die. My ticket's already punched. I already figured, like, I already felt like I was already dead. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, so, like, going there and then going to these therapies and hearing these other troops that have went through just utterly hell. Like, for one, I didn't feel like I was worthy enough to be in there with them.
Yeah.
But after I finally, like, put down my fist and stopped fighting it and, like, heard them out, I was like, well, maybe I do have some issues. But as soon as I got out, man, it was like, I think I got out like the day before my birthday, right back to the same old crap, drinking and whatever, and
What do you think, in an effort to just numb the pain or numb the feelings, or that's what you knew, or?
probably what I knew, but like realistically, probably that numbing, man. Like I didn't want to face my emotions. I didn't want to face anything, and it kind of goes back to childhood, like in a sense of like, I never really got that like I never really expressed my emotions that much. My dad didn't express his emotions that much. Dad went to war. He came back. The last time he came back, he was really different. And like, as crazy as it seems, that was normal to me.
Yeah.
Now my daddy wasn't an alcoholic or nothing like that, but my dad's personality was totally different. And he was struggling mentally. And I know that now.
Mm-hmm.
But like when I'm at that point in my life, I just think it's just part of it.
Yeah.
It's like putting your shoes on. It's part of it.
Right.
So I get out, transition out of the Army, which was terrible because I had no plan at all. At this point, me and Heather are living together in Oak Grove, Kentucky. She's still doing amazing things with Applebee's, has a great career, and now I'm like the veteran boyfriend that has nothing going for him. And we go on a cruise to Mexico, kind of just like to seal it off. Like, hey, you're out of the Army, it's a family vacation, whatever.
Yeah.
And we go hang out in Mexico. I ask her to marry me. We get engaged. We come back, and then like it gets real. Like, Jake, what are you gonna do now? And so I find like line work, like power lines and stuff like that. And there's a line school right there in Tennessee. It's called North American Lineman Training Center. I'm like, well, I got this GI Bill. Let's go give this a shot.
Right.
And so I go do that, man. And none of that came easy to me. If it wasn't for my wife and her persistence to like wake me up and make me study, man, I'd have never graduated, dude. And like, meanwhile, like I'm with like a bunch of like kids, like fresh out of high school and stuff like that. And like,
yeah, and you're older and lived a little bit of life.
Oh yeah, and like, so like it was like I was starting to see like I struggled to get along with like just regular people, and there was some vets there, and like we kind of stuck together like a gang or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like that school was very, very mentally challenging for me because of academics, and like there's a lot going on.
Yeah, people have a misconception that blue collar guys are dumb.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are not. They may not be book smart, but they know their craft or whatever.
Oh yeah, man. And it don't matter, you're working on power lines, wiring up houses, building houses, finishing concrete, whatever. Like any of them trades that are essential, there's a lot that goes into it. Like I'm telling you right now, you don't want to trust me wiring up a house. Right. You dang sure don't want me trying to frame a house out for you because it's going to look like a stick hut by the time we get done.
Yeah.
And but yeah, man. So I graduated line school. Somewhere in between there, me and Heather found out that she was pregnant with my son Rhett, and we go back to her hometown, the Outer Banks, North Carolina. We go celebrate it with her family and whatnot, and we come back and we get married at the courthouse. And funny story about that, we're at the Hopkinsville courthouse in Kentucky. And we literally had two strangers to be our witnesses, and we're mid like vows, and he's not a priest. I guess he's like a judge or some sort of like political figure like that,
right.
And his phone starts ringing, and he picks it up mid sentence, and he's like, "Hello." And he answers this phone call. And like during the...
Do you take this bride? Oh, hang on a second. Hello?
Dude, and I'm promising you it was just like that. And like when his phone was ringing, Heather was looking at me with like lasers. Like, are you kidding me? And I literally like said, it ain't me.
Yeah. My phone's on silent. It's not me.
So yeah, dude, that's how I knew we were off to a good start. When dude was answering a phone call in the middle of it. But we got married and ended up having Rhett. I went to work in the power line industry. My first job out of line school was at Groves Electric there in Madisonville, Kentucky. And I worked there. Got my commercial driver's license there because that was a requirement.
Yeah, because you got to drive their trucks.
Yeah, you got to drive their diggers and bucket trucks and all the above. And so I got my CDL. I was working at Groves. I'm not really sure what happened, but I ended up leaving Groves. I don't really remember. I didn't get fired, but I think like I went on like some false hope that I was going to get into an apprenticeship, and for the IBW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the Louisville office, and that didn't happen. So now I'm like jobless, and that's when I started driving trucks for a minute, and I started driving a semi truck. So now I'm on the road. My wife has a newborn baby, and I'm gone all the time. And so we got a newborn, and the birth of Rhett was pretty traumatic. Me and Heather had been fighting that morning before she went to go get her her glucose test or whatever it was, and we had been like in an argument that morning, and we went to Post on Fort Campbell. That's where Rhett was born. And we get there and like try to brush it off, put a smile on our face, go in there, do the whole baby thing, and they got like the ultrasound machine trying to find a heartbeat. And the nurse is like, "Have you felt it move?" And she's like, "No." And she's like, "Chug this cold water," and she doesn't. And like next thing I know, she's like slapping all these buttons and everything, and all these alarms going off, and like they're trying to push me out the room, and like I'm raging. I'm like, you ain't not gonna push me out this bleeping room. Like, and like so now, like I'm standing at the head of the bed, like just trying to comfort her. Like here, me and her were just fighting like cats and dogs. Now I'm like, what's going on right now?
Right.
And turns out that Rhett's breathing had stopped in the fetus or whatever, and we ended up having Rhett that day, and that was pretty traumatic for both of us.
How early was he?
Man, he I think he was almost full term.
Yeah.
But it was that he had stopped breathing. Is
Right.
what?
That's why they took him. But I didn't know if she was like halfway through or almost. So
No,
almost.
yeah, we were almost to the finish line regardless. Man, I can't remember the exact week.
Yeah.
But like, it was pretty far along, and dude, that was scary. That was real scary for me because like, even though that we'd been arguing or whatever that morning, like standing there seeing my wife bawl and telling me she call my mom. I'm like, what do I do here? And then like them trying to push me out, like I was ready to fight every one of them doctors. I didn't care, but we ended up having a healthy little boy, and I don't know, it was awesome, you know. And now like you got this immature dude that don't know what he's doing with his life. And now he's gonna go try to play father.
Mm-hmm.
And first thing I did wrong was go drive trucks, be gone all the time.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it was providing at the time financially for my family, but it wasn't providing like emotionally and just time.
So let me ask you this though, and this is what I'm thinking as I'm hearing your story is you're falling into the patterns that you knew as far as from your father.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, hey, and you probably think, I don't want to put thoughts into your head, but you probably think you're doing better than your father. Well, at least I'm providing, you know, and I'm around some, you know. My job is making me have to go and be away, but, you know, I'm providing.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely, you know, and like my dad's a great dude. He really is, you know, but like dad's always worked hard. Dad's always been gone. Dad was always deployed and everything like that. So you're absolutely probably right and onto something, dude. Like I just fallen into what I know, you know, and during all this, you know, drinking became an issue, became a main fighting topic between me and Heather, you know, and Heather has a rough upcoming, you know, and that's not my story to tell.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to.
I've heard your wife's story, and it's powerful, too.
Yeah.
This is a men's podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. I might have her on here if she would tell the story because it's that good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I'm not really going to go into that, but needless to say, like, alcohol, drug abuse, violence, like, my wife is not A-okay with any of that. Mm-hmm. And I was disrespecting the heck out of her about that, you know. At this point, man, we're living like seriously, like dirt floor poor in a sense, you know. Like I'm driving truck, I'm getting paid like 30 cents a mile, working some like bullcrap job, you know, dead end job. And I remember like one point of our relationship, we had just had Rhett. We're living in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and like we barely could get the bills paid, and we had like $20, and we went on a date with that $20 to Buffalo Wild Wings there in Hopkinsville to watch college football, and we shared like a 10-piece wing and a basket of fries.
Wow.
You know, and like looking back now, like as crappy as the circumstances were, that was like one of the happiest moments of my life. Like we took literally our last little bit of money for us, you know, and that was important. Yeah. You know, and so that whole like driving truck and to specify I was hauling a box trailer, you know, that came to an end when I got called to go work out at Local 429 for the IBEW. I got accepted, and they're like, dude, we want you to come work with us on this TVA contract. Would you be interested? I'm like, yeah, get me out of this truck. Yeah. What I didn't realize, though, is that I was going to be tramping around, which means that, like, you go job to job, you know, and I got in the apprenticeship and got with this crew, and excuse me, we get killing it, working on this power line. I'm away from home. My first job, I think, was like Knoxville, Tennessee area. And like this is like where road life really started to like affect my life. We're blue collar workers, man. We work 12-hour days, 14-hour days. We come home, we drink, we hang out. We're living in a camper, and it just got really real like that, and
That I think that's something that people don't understand too. Is like I did that line of work for just a little bit, where I worked for an electrical contractor, and we would go. You leave on Monday morning or maybe even Sunday night, and you go and you stay in hotels, and we were rewiring auto zones, but I spent my whole paycheck every night. Going and after you like you said, you work all day, 12-hour, 14-hour day, and then you go out, you have a really good meal, you maybe drink, you maybe do some entertainment, whatever the case may be, and then you spend $400, and when you get home on Friday afternoon, your paycheck's $500. You're like, oh crap, that didn't work out good.
No, math wasn't there. And during this time, my wife's at home with a Rhett. Rhett's about one now, maybe about one and a half, and I'm out just being stupid, bro. Just being stupid. The covenant of our marriage didn't mean nothing to me.
Pull your mic a little closer.
Got you. You got me now?
Yep.
But like the covenant of our marriage didn't mean anything to me. I got introduced to cocaine, and
This is the first time you've done hard drugs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it got brought to light, man. One of the people I was working with on the power line, me and him went out, had a good night, and telling God's honest truth, still this night, I can't remember everything that happened that day, but I ended up like losing my wallet, and a bunch of money was gone and everything. And I have a wife at home that's been by my side already through hell, and I just was literally being a piece of crap, and that's what I was doing. I got a wife and a kid, and I'm out doing whatever, or as we say now, live in the fleshy way. Lost as could lost be.
Yeah.
But we get through that whole little scenario. Not really. It kind of got brushed on the rug because I was gone all the time. So what we thought was healed wasn't really healed. We just put a doormat over it,
a Band-Aid over it.
Yep. And we ended up finding out that we're gonna have Colt, and that was pretty exciting, kind of scary though.
Kid number two,
and it was crazy because like literally the week before, because I was working 7/12s, and we had got ahead of the project there in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and they're like, "Hey, go home for 4 days, spend time with your family." Well, I had went home, but the night before I went home, I had a dream that we were about to have a baby, and I thought it was a baby girl. Well, Heather, when I went home, she's like, "Meet me at our favorite Mexican restaurant there in Tiny Town, Tennessee." So I went, and Rhett's wearing things saying I'm gonna be a big brother or whatever, and I'm like, "That's wild." But so we ended up doing that. I kept on working on the power line, and I ended up going to a job in Arkansas in the swamps over there by Stuttgart, and I was like at my wit's end because I'm almost done my apprenticeship, but they are like, we're working in water, like literally everything's wet. It sucks, and like we're not getting nothing accomplished. There's snakes everywhere, and like we're way beyond schedule. So like I am stressed to the max. I'm boozing it up, acting a fool, and the guy I was working with, man, he always told me, he's like, "Jake, you want to know what power lines are made out of?" And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Whiskey, hatred, and cocaine." And I'm like, "Well, you ain't wrong, because that's about what everybody around here is doing."
We do, yeah. Gotcha.
And we ended up having Colt when I was still over there with service. I went back to work, and I had got approached with the opportunity to go work on power lines out of a helicopter. And so I had to make a decision, like, okay, do I stay here working on a regular, like, distribution transmission crew, or do I go do, like, some high voltage stuff on a helicopter? And I was like, I'm going to go do the helicopter. I'm sick of my feet getting wet here in Arkansas.
Right.
So that's what I did, and I went to PA and got hired in and was working there for Haverfield and did that for a very short period of time. And had some Final Destination stuff happen to me. I had been on a job there in Baltimore, Maryland, and we were doing like a rebuild job, and I'd been on this helicopter like all morning long.
Mm-hmm.
And we had gotten relieved. The guy that was coming to relieve me brought the rental car. I threw my gear bag and my clothes bag in the rental car. We passed off like the responsibility, like, hey, now you're doing this task. And then I get on the airplane. By the time I landed in Nashville, my phone's blowing up saying there's been a helicopter crash in Baltimore.
Oh no!
And sure enough, that bird went out of had crashed.
Yeah.
So, just being brutally honest, like, it scared me to my core.
Yeah.
You know, and like I'd already had close calls doing that helicopter stuff. You know, like where like you have no control. You know, your life is literally in old boy's hands and feet when he's on the sticks. You know.
Yeah. So let me wrap my head around this for a minute, because I have a friend of mine. Well, I say friend, acquaintance of mine that I went to high school with, and he does this. But basically, it's a smaller helicopter, right? And they fly up next to the power lines, and you basically step out onto the lines, right? Like you have a harness, a big hook, but
so it depends on what you're doing. It is a small aircraft. It's a little bird typically. Now they do use Blackhawks and like a sky crane sometimes, but it's pretty much just a stripped out little bird. You know, like what is it, like a 500? I think that's what the size of it is, or whatever the abbreviation. And depending on what you do, you'll either stand like on a skid, or you'll sit on a platform, or they'll bring you in by a long line and drop you off, you know. And there's several different reasons why they use different things, you know, like they'll fly you in with ladders or whatever needs to be done, you know. But regardless, it's not very safe. FAA hate it, you know. And
having rotors, you know, within inches of high voltage power lines.
Well, and the thing is like, as a pilot, the pilots are doing everything that they have been taught from day one not to do. They're flying right next to power lines, and they got to be perfect. There's no room for error.
No.
None at all, because they might only be their rotor might only be clearing that line by 3 feet. If they sneeze wrong, they're killing everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and especially with that long line, you know, you'd think that'd be the safest way, but that long line is sketchy business, especially when they're dropping you down through like different lines and stuff, and like different power lines when they're dropping you through the different circuits to like to an arm or something, like it's kind of sketchy, you know. And but so that scared the crap out of me really good, and I was over it. But now I got a wife, a brand new baby, and I got Rhett Michael, you know. And this is like the ultimate turning point of my life, where my life starts to go downhill. So I'm sitting in Clarksville, Tennessee, at our home there, and I was like, I gotta go make a living, but I'm done with power lines. Like, that's how scared I was, you know. And I found my way to a cow truck, hauling livestock.
So back to driving a truck.
Back to driving a truck, and I had gotten hired on an outfit right there in Tennessee, named Triple P. They're outside of Nashville, and hauling cows, and that's where the beginning of the end for me.
So, to me, that sounds like I'm not familiar with the cattle industry. So, but to me, like, that sounds like a good job.
Man, it is. And before I start going in on the rest of my story, not everybody that hauls livestock ends up like me.
Okay.
You know, I fell in like a product of a crowd, and like a stigma of a lifestyle. That's all that was.
Okay.
Not everybody is doing the stupid stuff I'm doing. You know, is there a majority out there? Absolutely. But there's a majority of people anywhere that are doing the wrong thing.
Right.
So, but yeah, so I get hired to start hauling cows. I'm green as a gourd.
Give me a time frame. What year is this?
This is like probably like 2000 and like 18, 19 area,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
So 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I get into it, and I start going at it, man. And I learn. There's a lot to learn about it, you know. Like you loading them up, and then the drives. Like people don't realize, like them guys that haul cattle and pigs and whatnot, they can't stop. You don't stop because, for one, your load is living.
Mm-hmm.
For two, the heat will kill them. The cold will kill them. They don't have water. They don't have food.
Right.
So like everything is stacked against you, but you got to get this product that's worth somebody's like livelihood. It's worth a lot of money from point A to point B. You know, and I don't know, man. Like it paid good, and like that's pretty much all I saw. Was like, well, dude, I'm gonna get to drive a cool truck and go real fast with a bunch of lots and make good money. Like this is gonna be great.
Yeah, I guess we don't really think about that, and I haven't either. Like I'm the son of a truck driver. Like my dad's been driving a truck as long as I've been born. I'm 37 years old, but he's always hauled like either van or flatbed or something like that. He did a very short stint of hauling cattle for like Riley's or one of these local guys, but very short. Like every now and then they needed him, but you don't think about if it's 100-degree day, you can't stop and take you a little nap. You'll kill them. You'll kill the livestock because then you're not moving. They're not getting any airflow, and they're crammed in there, right?
Yep.
You're trying to load as many on there as you can, and then the same if it's cold. You know, you can't get stuck in a winter storm and lose half your load because they froze to death. So.
No, and I had that happen. I mean, we'll get there, but it's delicate, man.
Yeah.
It's delicate, and like in the truck driving industry, like they call them bull haulers, but bull haulers are the king of the road. Like you don't mess with them because they're on a timeline, and that's why you see them at night. I'm probably everybody that watches this show, man, has been going down the highway one time when it's nighttime and they see them coming over there and they're moving, you know, and it wasn't nothing for them to pass you going 90.
Yeah.
You know, so I get in this life, and at first I'm kind of struggling. I'm not even gonna lie. My first load was from like Murfreesboro, Tennessee, out to Iowa. It was like 900 miles, and I'm struggling. You know, like
you got to make this in one trip, basically.
oh yeah, you load them today, and we're like FedEx overnight for cattle. Like they're gonna be there the next morning.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm struggling. I get knocked out, and I go on for like a couple weeks of just getting by. You know, and this is all new to me. Like this is the first time I've had to play the role outlaw. I have to worry about where the cops are. I got to worry about trying to get around these scales. I got to worry about, you know, not getting a speeding ticket and using like a radar detector and all this stuff that you wouldn't even think about because you didn't learn that when you were previously like doing this,
right.
You know? And finally I hit rock bottom like 3 months in, and I called my wife, and you could ask her. It was late. I called her at like midnight, and I was sobbing. And I was in Iowa, matter of fact, and I told her, I said, Heather, I just want to come home. I'll get an Uber and come home. I'm loaded with cows on the side of the road. And she's like, Jake, you can't just come home. That's not that simple. And like, I had hit that road barrier, you know, like I've hit rock bottom, being isolated in my thoughts, you know, and my relationship with my wife at this point was pretty good, you know, and
let's talk about that too. I think a lot of people don't think about too. Is trucking is a very lonely job.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, it's very lonely. But then like specifically hauling cows and bull hauling, you're up all the time.
Yeah,
you're up all the time, and everybody that like is in your life is asleep when you're awake.
And you're trucking.
Yeah. So like your life like goes on when you're not there.
Yeah.
You know.
I know my dad. like I said, he's been driving for 30 some odd years. And, I love my dad. He's always been the type that early on in my life, he would drive for like HT Hackney at Paducah, just delivering groceries and whatnot. So he'd be home every night. But at some point, he started the over the road stuff because that's where the money is.
Yeah.
So he's gone through the week, home on the weekends. But if my dad calls you, you have to be prepared to talk to him for 20 or 30 minutes because he doesn't mean anything by it, but the man's lonely. He's out there on the road by himself all the time. And so when he does get the opportunity to talk to somebody, he's fixing to talk your head off. Sometimes I gotta be like, when I answer the phone, I'm like, I got 5 minutes. That's it. Like what you need, get to the point pretty quick.
Yeah. And you're right, man. And it's a sad reality of it. Because the only thing we do, as a truck driver, and you don't even really necessarily realize how lonely you are, and that's where it gets dangerous.
Yep.
And so when back to this point, I'm at rock bottom, calling my wife at midnight, sobbing my eyes out, I just want to come home. I'm done. I'm checked out. And looking back, hindsight being 2020, that was God working on my life, and I didn't even know it. Right there, He was giving me free will. I should have just went home that night.
Yeah.
I should have went home that night. And but I didn't. I pushed through. I wiped my tears up and manned up and delivered that load and started falling into it more and more often. And to give context to this, I wasn't going for a couple of days. I would be gone for bare bones 3 weeks. I'd be gone for at least 3 weeks and be home for 2 days.
Yeah.
So I'm missing birthdays. I'm missing first words, first steps, everything. Because I got little boys at this point, little boys. And, bro, that's time I'm never going to get back, brother. That's time I'm never going to get back.
Yeah.
But after that night, I made up my mind, I'm going to be a bull hauler. And
you went all in. You went from being waist deep to you just dove in.
Yeah. I went from rock bottom right there when I called Heather, and I was over it. I'm coming home, and I guess I told her I was gonna get an Uber from Iowa to come home, and I'm loaded with cows when this is going on, you know, but I hadn't slept in a day and a half, and at this point there's no drug usage of me hauling cows. I'm just living off of caffeine, and that's about it at this point in my life. But yeah, so after that, I made a turn, okay, I got to do this, I got 2 kids and a wife at home and a house and everything else every other man has, and I invested in it, and I started learning and hauled and missed everything, man. And eventually, I got my reputation out there. I was known everywhere for the most part. I had contacts from California to Maine. I was hauling cows from Mexico north and from north to Mexico, and it just became a struggle that became real, and besides just sitting there soaking it, I embraced it and let the lifestyle overtake my life. And so we're still living in Tennessee. I'm working for the same jack wagon out of Tennessee. I put in some time for him, and he's just not doing me right. Man, I'm working all the time. I'm hardly ever home. I've missed things. I've missed birthdays, and I'm just yeah, screw you, dude. And so I hauled a load of bulls from Joplin, Missouri to Ohio. And when I went to unload them, I met this guy there, and he was the nephew of the owner of this ranch. And he's like, dude, I would love for you to come over here. He's like, yeah, come over here and work with me, man. And I was like, well, I don't know about that, brother. And he's like, dude, we'll bring your family. You guys can move up here. We'll make you where you're in charge of loading the cow trucks and scheduling loads and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, now this is starting to sound kind of good, right?
Yeah, get you off the road.
Yeah. So I bring it up to Heather, but I wasn't sold yet because the cattle business is full of a bunch of crooked people. And they might say, I'll give you $5 if you come and, talk in this mic, but you're probably not going to see that $5, you know? And so I wasn't sure if he was bluffing, So I'm still working for that same outfit out there in Tennessee, and me and him had our fallout, man. He called me one day screaming and cussing me because I had a blown tire. And besides, like, going with the cheapest version, I got, like, a mid-grade tire. And he was, like, telling me it's coming out of my check and everything. And me being the lovely hothead I am, I pretty much told him what I thought about him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and parked the truck. Excuse me. But I went back home. And now, like, I just quit a job without a destination. And Heather was like, well, what are we going to do now? And I was like, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm about to go work at this ranch in Ohio. And she was like, okay, And so she had drove me up there with our kids, and we went and spent like a day or two up there. And I hired in, and I should have known that it was screwed up because literally my family was there, and they loaded me with a load of cows. And me and my family and my 2 kids in the truck ran a load of cows and sheep to Pennsylvania. Like, that should have been my red flag.
Yeah, right off the bat. That's not even what he promised.
No, that should have been my red flag, but it wasn't, man. Like, I was, at this point, like, I was deep in the lifestyle, but, like, I had ounces of life in me that I still wanted my family,
Yeah.
And, the lifestyle overtook, and, so they end up going home. I'm working up there in Ohio, and this is the last time I was exposed to cocaine. I was getting ready to load the next morning, and an individual from around there had came to me, and I had gotten his pickup truck, and they had already broke it out and everything. He's like, well, you're in here now. You can't rat on us to do a line. And I felt the temptation, bro.
Yeah.
And still to this day, I don't know what was in that cocaine. But I laid in the back of that bunk of that Peterbilt thinking I was dying. And there's nothing I could do.
Yeah.
Can't call EMT. Can't call the cops. Because guess what? I got CDL. I'm in a state I don't live in.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I do?
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for that now because that experience scared me enough I never touched drugs again after that. But would later on cause issues,
Mm-hmm.
And so that happens. A couple weeks go by. I come back to Tennessee. We pack our things, and here's another red flag that God was trying to give us, man. We go to leave Tennessee, and the door on the trailer that we were using flies open. Just flies open. Then my pickup truck tears up. That just pulling the truck tears up. Like, we had like 900 red flags, man, and
you just
blown right through them.
You just put your blinders on, and just kept on going.
Yeah, and I don't know why, really. Like, even Haley, like, I don't know why we did that. And we get to Ohio, and they had promised a house and everything else. Well, we didn't get none of that.
Mm.
We didn't get none of that. So now my family's up here living in a hotel. I'm absolutely pissed off. Like, what in the world, And they're still sending me on the road, So, like, nothing that they promised me is coming true,
right?
And or coming to fruition. And we pretty much just leaned into each other. Like, we're gonna have to figure this out. And we ended up getting a house, and we're living on a horse ranch there, like a performance horse ranch. Mm-hmm. And that was actually pretty cool. A lot of high dollar horses that me and my wife would never ever get to experience that we got to experience. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But we finally got in a rhythm. The cow drivers showed up, and I'm loading trucks and doing all that. And at the beginning, I'm still on the road a little bit, trying to get some dudes trained up and teach them how the ways, and I'm finding loads, brokering loads out, and all that. And when I'm at home, the problem is I'm drinking. When I'm on the road, the problem is that I'm, like, losing my mind, doing whatever, and I can't even imagine, like, what my wife was thinking, Like, I can't, because for one, like, she knows that I was kind of a heavy drunk.
Mm-hmm.
She knows previously from me stepping out that could potentially be a thing. She knows that, like, she knows, but maybe does not want to admit, but like that whole crowd or has a stigma of doing drugs, you know, and like even on social media they think it's funny and like in a sense like appealing or like sexy or something like that. But like Heather didn't find that, you know. So like,
Oh yeah.
you know, so like I couldn't imagine what she's going through. You know, 2 kids. I'm still a prisoner of the highway.
Yeah, in a sense, they were glorifying the drug usage and being able to run for days
And
straight.
yeah,
And stuff.
dude, and they still do it to this day.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. You know, like I don't know. Like,
Well, you do.
well, like
At the time, you probably didn't, but
well, like right now, like what I'm saying is like I don't know why they glorify it so much. Like it's a sad reality, you know. Like where I'm at today, like it's pretty sad that I had to like use like I never after that last incident with the cocaine usage, I never touched it again. But I did rely heavily on like the blackjacks and stuff like that. Like, and they're pretty much all they are is legal Adderall,
right.
you know.
Well, the reason that people glorify stuff like that is because they know it's wrong, but they don't like the feeling of knowing that it's wrong. Right? You know the old saying, "Misery loves company." So they're not in a good place. But as long as they're in that bad place with a lot of people, it doesn't feel as bad.
Yeah. Man.
So by glorifying it, then you make it sound cool, and then the guy next to you in the truck next to you is like, "Oh, well, he's doing it, and he's saying it's okay to do, and it's cool, so I'm gonna start." And it's just like a domino effect from there.
Yeah, man.
And it just what it takes to reverse that though is it takes guys like you to come out and say like, "I did that, and I glorified it." And it was not. It was not it.
Yeah, no, it's not the answer, man.
Mm-hmm.
It really ain't. But I mean, you're right, man. People will try to bring glory to something stupid like that, you know. But so back to it. I'm still hauling cows. Me and the Lazy L end up having a fallout. I end up going to another outfit, which I end up purchasing my first truck with, and so now I'm like invested, you know. Like
you got your own truck.
Yeah,
owner operator.
Yeah, I'm financially invested at this point.
Gotcha.
Like we're gonna run this thing, you know. And Heather's trying to be supportive, you know. You know, and she's never negative about it. She thinks that I'm gonna set the world on fire, you know, and that, you know, bust out a couple of years of me hauling cows, doing what I know, and we'll be okay. You know, we won't be living in a trailer or whatever, you know, and because at the time that's what we were. We were in a trailer because we after we left the ranch, we had to leave the house, so we were living in a trailer house at Yoder's Livestock, which was essentially owned by the same people, but Heather was the finance lady there, so that's how we got our leg in there.
Gotcha.
Excuse me, but so we did that. I'm hauling my own stuff now, and this is where it starts getting crazy because now things start getting even more stressful, you know. And I have 2 kids, you know. My son Rhett was bit in the face by our dog, and I was gone. You know, I get a phone call from the neighbors saying like, your wife and son are in the back of an ambulance. He'd been bit by a dog. I was like, what dog? Your dog. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. And then come to find out, in that same time span, we find out that Rhett has apraxia, which is a neurological issue from when he was in the womb, and he lost breathing. Well, they can't prove that, but like that's
what they think.
That's what they think, or like the signs show, you know. And so now I'm facing my own demons. I'm stressed out about money. I'm isolated. I'd say my marriage is okay. You know, like it's not. It's okay, but it's not. You know, it's cracked. We were cracked from the jump. You know, and That's easy to say now,
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
You were two broken people trying to mend each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot, man. That's heavy. I find out that your son has a disability like that, and I'm not really a smart dude, I heard apraxia, and like I'm thinking of like Down syndrome, like what's going on? Nothing wrong with that, but like
Yeah.
I didn't know like the severity levels.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there's levels to those things.
And I was panicking, and so now finances became a really big thing, and like we have excellent insurance through TRICARE and everything, but like a lot of those extensive therapies, insurance don't pay for. They come right out of your wallet, So like we're sending him to the best therapies that we can afford, and he's going. At that time, I think he was going like 4 times a week, and we're not getting no answers, man. Like we know your son has apraxia, but like the extent we don't know,
And it that affects like his speech and
Yes, sir. It affects his speech, his motor skills, his like cognitive skills. So like for instance, like walking and like patting a beat on his leg, that's something that Rhett couldn't do.
Right.
Or like as of last night, me and him were doing homework, and he can identify all of his like vocabulary words, but then he goes to try to like say them, he can't say it, and and it's so frustrating as a parent because like my son ain't dumb by no means,
right.
And if anything, he's a brilliant, and I'm telling you right now, he's the hardest worker in the room, and it kind of breaks your heart, because you see how frustrated he gets, like, and then his little brother Coco is just picking it up like that, and it breaks your heart,
Yeah, he'll have to be a fighter his whole life,
and he will be.
Yeah,
and
he a funny story. Of course, I've known your family for about a year now, but just while we're on the subject of Rhett, the other night he come into the church and he's got his shirt on backwards, and it's a monster truck shirt, and I was like, and he's grown so much just since he's been going to church. Like he didn't used to talk to anybody, and now he'll talk to anybody, right? And so I see him, I'm like, hey, what's up, Rhett? He said, hey. And I said, you got your shirt on backwards? He goes, I know, I like it this way. It was a monster truck shirt. And so the truck, on the actual front of the shirt just has a small monster truck, but the back's blown up like the whole shirt. And he was like, I know, I like it like this. The trucks are bigger on the back. He wanted it big on the front. I was like, hey, man, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, he has a mind of his own, man. He's a trip. Yeah. But you're absolutely right, and there for a while, he was like mush mouth off a fat over it. Even me and his mama couldn't understand what he was saying, and he's flourished, man. And honestly, the credit goes to God and Heather's persistence, because realistically, I wasn't home.
Yeah.
I all I did was play fun guy. I come home for 3-4 days and sleep, do laundry, and love on them and leave. I didn't do the hard stuff.
The hard stuff, the discipline.
No.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is like, it goes back to that time thing. Time's everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wasting everything. And I don't even know it at this point. I'm so, like, wrapped up thinking I'm doing everything. I'm providing, man. I'm making the money. I got to stay a home wife. We're sending Brett to these $high therapies, and, they're doing whatever they want to do. So in my mind, we're kosher, and I was sadly mistaken, man. We end up deciding that we're going to leave Ohio, and I'm still hauling cows, and we decided we're going to leave Ohio. We weren't sure where we were going to go. We looked at Florida. We looked at going to the Outer Banks. We looked at Mayfield and back to Tennessee and Texas. Like, the one thing about my wife, she'd follow me to hell and back. As long as we were together, she didn't care.
Yeah.
And she said she wanted to come back here. She wanted to be back around my family and everything. So The night of the Mayfield tornado, Heather was on her way here to start looking for houses for us. And I was in Dodge City, Kansas. I was laid over about to load a load of feeders the next morning. And I was at the Cowboy Capital there eating a dinner. I was eating a steak dinner. And I looked over and I saw my hometown being destroyed by a tornado.
Wow.
You know?
That was 2021, right? The 2021
Yes, sir.
tornado, yeah.
Yes, sir. And so that's when things kind of got real, you know?
So we're about an hour and a half. Let's pause right here and take a little break. And then when we come back, this is kind of a part in your story where I get to know you and I'm introduced to you. And then so we'll pick up from there after we take a little break.
10-4.